By the end of this video, I will tell you how I've gotten every gig I've ever gotten, ever. Maybe. I'm assuming you don't want to hear about how I got a gig playing with a non-profit on a Tuesday where I was the only non-pole dance act. Unless you do. Man, I've gotten a gig in every way that you can imagine. From commenting under a Facebook post that said, "Does anyone know a saxophone player?" to just showing up with my band at a restaurant for their grand opening, realizing the grand opening had been postponed, the restaurant feeling bad about it, my band going to their sister restaurant with all of our instruments, auditioning for them there, and getting a gig with them that night. That became a recurring gig, so very worth it. I've gotten gigs from my mom telling a coffee shop while she was hanging out there every Tuesday night. She was waiting for me to get out of my extracurricular Jazz U program. To my mom's coworker asking me to play solo saxophone for a charity benefit that happened to be mostly pole dancers. You remember that, right? From the intro? But I will tell you right now that most of those instances are outliers. What usually ends up happening is the people in your musical community that know you as a specialist on your instrument will ask you to play with them, or more often sub for them. And then, times when you were just replacing someone for one night become more permanent when those people that you were subbing for move on to bigger and better things. I'll tell you, right now, consistently, I'm in 4 bands. I would be in none of those bands without the musical connections I made during college studying music. Like I mentioned before, even when I was just responding to someone that posted, "Can anybody give me a good saxophone player?" somebody commented below my comment and said, "I can vouch this is a good saxophone player." I knew that guy through college. But the importance of college for another video. Right now, let's talk to the professionals. Here's Bernard for his take on first impressions.
You gotta show 200%, 300%. Hey, this is what I can do. Jam sessions, like not just jazz, not just R&B, not just hip hop. Any jam session, people call you over to the house, go, "Hey, can I do a jam session?" Cool, do a jam session. Like, enjoying yourself on different gigs. So like, I remember starting off, I used to play for free. I thought $50 was a lot of money. Now I learned $100 was a lot of money. I was like, man, let me see, this ain't nothing. Went on tour, $1,000 every time I stepped on stage. That same tour, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna pay you double, $2,000, $3,000. So it just starts with work ethic, and you gotta start from somewhere. Humble beginnings, as everybody says. Humble beginnings. So that's how you do it. You start small and you work your way up.
Excellent. Now let's go to my man Nick. Nick is a guitarist and vocalist that's involved with an agency, and he gets a lot of work through them. But I wanted to ask him what one should do if they're not involved in an agency and still want to find gigs. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I mean, the most important thing about, like, how do you go about being a freelance musician? I don't know. I would say just do it.
Thanks, Nick. Hey, be sure to like and subscribe, everyone, and thank you for... I'm kidding. I'm just messing with y'all. Let's get back to him.
Get whatever you can get starting off. You don't need to be involved with an agency. Of course not, no. You're going to need a community. You know what I'm saying? So, first step, like if I had to start over in a new city, I don't know anybody. Like, I just, poof, I'm in Atlanta. Kansas City or Atlanta, or you know what I mean? First thing I would do is I'd spend maybe a weekend or two checking out bars, find the ones I liked that cool people looked like they were hanging out at with the best music, like stuff I liked listening to. I'd try to introduce myself to those people, try to cozy up to them, see if we could get along, try to make a couple new friends, and then I'd be hitting open mic nights. So. And you just stay out listening to music and playing music, and opportunities pop up a lot more than you think. Sometimes somebody that you never thought would have something for you in the future will.
That's huge. Thelonious Monk once said, "Never sound out a gig," which means to never ask anyone the literal question, "Excuse me, can I have a gig?" It wouldn't be too much trouble. "I'll take your finest gig. I'll take two for me." Because not only does that often put a bad taste in people's mouths, it's just not usually how people get gigs. Showing up to jam sessions, open mics, live music, and local bands shows communicates that message in the correct way, and also communicates correct intentions. Your intentions, instead of, "I want all the gigs right now," should be, "I want to be a part of this performing arts community. I just happen to play an instrument." Then all the people who are professional musicians and avid music fans in your area will get to know you, or at least get to know of you, because you're part of the community. You represent yourself well, and you're what musicians call a good hang. These are the people that get gigs and continue to get gigs because everyone loves them and knows that their intentions are pure. Now for a little taste of life past bar gigs, restaurant gigs, and wedding gigs, here's my man TC to give you some info. To qualify this, TC has played with pretty much everybody. Temptations, Melba Moore, the Village People, the YMCA people. And this is his experience landing a gig by just being prepared, or rather, over-prepared.
When Gladys' group, they said, okay, come to rehearsal. We want you to, we're going to rehearse, Midnight Train to Georgia, and we're gonna rehearse, it was like 2 songs. Neither one of us. There's those 2 songs. Just learn those just so we can get to rehearsal. I think the piano player couldn't make it or something, so he just needs somebody to fill in. Well, before I got to the rehearsal, I learned more than that. Like I went and learned her biggest hits, on my own. They didn't tell me to. I just did it. And I got to the rehearsal, and sure enough, she comes in. I don't want to sing that right now. I want to sing such and such and such. And so, MD looks at me. TC, do you know that? I'm like, yeah, I know it. All right, cool. And then she called another song that he didn't tell me to learn, and I knew that one too. I knew that I had a feeling that the bigger hits that I would be safe in that arena. So my point in telling you all of that is to get a gig. Because I didn't get Gladys's gig. I didn't get to play with her, but because of that, I did get that production show. Like because of that rehearsal, they were like, "I want you in this production show." Okay, so it's same tier, same in terms of like requirements and all that. So going above and beyond the Call of Duty, like don't just do the bare minimum. Like, and that led to Midnight Star. That led to the Village People, and that led to the Temptations. You know what I mean? And then that led to Melba Moore. So like all of that happened because I go more. I don't just learn these 7 songs. Well, I'm learning 14. Learning these 14 songs. I'm learning 28 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's, in my opinion, that's how you get a gig, especially on the upper tier.
That's what's up. Now, I know earlier we talked about never sounding out a gig, like Thelonious Monk said, and I agree. That's about a 1 out of 25 success rate for me. But first of all, I have found some of my best and longest running work just by asking the question, do y'all do live music? Or do y'all need bands for your live music schedule? I'll let my man Michael do some explaining. When booking shows, is it usually a matter of venues coming to you and being like, we like your product? Or you coming to them and being like, I have a product?
I mean, it's both ways. A lot of times I will have what's called a press kit that has like, hey, this is my band, this is what we do. These are some videos where you can check this out. And, I'll send that to them, and they either respond back or go with it, or they don't. You just keep on knocking on doors. And there's other times that, you are doing your own thing somewhere else. And every now and then you'll get somebody in your inbox or somebody who shows up to a show and be like, hey, I want to book you for a birthday. Hey, I want to book you for this event down the line and stuff. But always keep in mind, no matter what, they are watching you. Even when you think you're not doing that well, there is somebody out there that is spreading your name, and it's either good or bad, but regardless what it is, they're spreading your name. And so people will always know about you. You are always being watched.
An ominous note, but a truthful one. Now, even though there's a possibility of getting gigs by just asking, it's always slim odds. But you can up your chances of getting a yes by being as professional as possible when shopping around your product, whether that product is you or your band. The way I've gone about asking questions to venues in the past, like, do you need more live music, or do y'all do jazz, has been for the most part way too forgettable and ineffective. So here's my friend Alex to talk to you about the most tasteful and effective way I've ever heard to go about asking those same questions.
When I would find a place that, like when I found my first sanctuary like yours and I played there, then I've reached out to who else is a sanctuary-like place. And I reached out to those places via email, or I dropped in, or Facebook Messenger and said, hey, I'm doing this thing at Sanctuaria. I think it would serve serve this space really well. Can I come play for you? And you know, and some of the things I think that I did that were helpful to me were I always tried to have really good media. When I look at some of my old media, I'm like, oh dude, that was so bad. That was not a good piece of media. But I was trying to make a piece of good media to present themselves. So I didn't just send a message saying, you know, hi Sanctuary, I'm Alex, you know, can I come play for you? I said, hello, my name is Alex. I recently started a gig at Sanctuary. I've done this for 2 months now. It's going very well. Here's a song list of some of the songs that I play. Here's a testimonial from the manager saying that I've done a good job. Here's 2 photos of me playing in there with a crowd around me doing. So I tried to show them, like, you know, trying to just be very detailed about what I was trying to bring to them, as opposed to just, can I just come play some tunes in your bar?
All that was so mind-blowing for me. The only thing I'll emphasize in there is that when you're sending emails to venue owners, make sure to include specific links to things. Don't just say you have a YouTube channel, include a link to your channel. Or, even better, include a link to a video that you feel best represents what you want to bring to their space. Put less steps in the way of people liking you. Now here's Alex again to talk about his origin story getting gigs on the St. Louis scene. And as we touched on a little before, oftentimes in a business with no clear in, the best way into the club is for someone that's a card-carrying member to open the door for you.
I also got in St. Louis, I got a big leg up from my good friend Kim Massey, who we lost this last year. We used to go and party at Kim Massey's shows and be on Broadway throughout our 20s. And Kim would invite me on stage to sing with her after a buddy of mine told her that I sang. And so that was a big leg up to me to be able to reach out to venues and say, you know, Kim Massey invites me onto her stage to sing songs and stuff like that. Because she was a St. Louis legend. So that got me into Broadway Oyster Bar. And then Broadway Oyster Bar got me into Tin Roof, got me into Evangeline's, got me into several other places, because it's sad and it's unfortunate, but name recognition goes a long way. So a person like Evangeline's, who might get a lot of inquiries from artists to come and play, it's like, oh, you've played Broadway Oyster Bar. Okay, well then you got to at least have a little bit going on. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you got to be the greatest in the world, but you got to at least have some. You know, you're not new at this. You're doing some things if a venue like that is inviting you onto their stage. So. Like I said, I was fortunate that I befriended Kim. She liked what I did, invited me to share in the music that she made, and so that gave me the leg up. So I guess the other piece I would say is find your way to give yourself some credentials. Collaborating with an artist that's a level above you, or going to a venue that that's maybe a little bit out of your league and offering to play at an off time for them. You know, like Broadway Oyster Bar, like, I probably am not going to get the 9 p.m. slot on a Friday. Can I play here Saturday at 2? So there's just finding ways to think outside the box and, get yourself in front of somebody that can hopefully make some moves for you. I think is something I would be thoughtful about, or I think I was thoughtful about as I was trying to build my momentum in the area, and I would recommend other artists do the same.
Perfect. Now I have my jazz saxophone professor, Jason, here to talk to you about what the journey might look like from a bird's eye view. And I think he touches on a crucial part of the artist's journey.
I mean, early on, it's the common advice that most musicians get is that you should take everything that comes your way, because you never know what that's going to lead to. And I think in general that's pretty good advice. And then hopefully if you get yourself a little bit more established, then you can maybe be a little bit more selective in terms of what comes your way. But also people will start to know who you are and what your specialties are, and then opportunities that align with what you are able to do will become more common, as opposed to, in the early days, they might just like, I need a saxophonist, any saxophonist, for the job. And so you might be way down the list where they get to the point, I need so-and-so's not available. Then they go, okay, if they're not available, I need so-and-so. And then at some point, they can't find anybody. And then they, you got any students? You got anybody that holds a saxophone? They might be so desperate, So, but then you might run into, especially when you get a more established, it's like, I need somebody who can play like this specific kind of music and who is known for playing this kind of music. And then maybe if you even make a name for yourself, they're literally, I need so-and-so. Not only because they can do the gig, but they might attract a certain audience as well, so I want to put their name on the bill, that kind of thing.
I think that's huge, because nobody just wants to be a saxophonist or just a keyboardist and do anything musical. That's what the beginning of the journey is for. Explore at the beginning and find out what music really gets your goat. What musical environments let you do the things that you enjoy about music. Then later down the line, you can be selective. I wanted to share a quick story with you. Right before my freshman year of college, I went to a saxophone camp called the Inside Outside Saxophone Retreat. And a man by the name of Bob Reynolds, perhaps you've heard of him if you play jazz or specifically saxophone, he gave us all 10 minutes one-on-one with him just to talk about anything we wanted to talk about. During my 10 minutes, I had one question. How do I become a professional musician? And he talked about another musician that had taught at the camp that week, Aaron Goldberg. Aaron Goldberg is one of the greatest pianists in the world right now. Bob told me about his monkey chain of at least 8 different gigs in New York City that led Aaron to the opportunity that put him on the map. And from glancing at Aaron's bio, I'm assuming that's playing with the Joshua Redman Quartet. In response to this story, I told Bob, oh, so it's just that easy. And Bob said back to me, no, it's that hard. Because the reality, y'all, is there's no real clear in music, if that makes sense. Ask anyone and they'll say the reason they're able to play music for a living is tons of dumb luck. But perhaps that's oversimplifying it. The last piece of advice that Bob gave me is this quote from Steve Martin. He said, be so good they can't ignore you. In a business with no specific in, as so many businesses are, to get into music, you just have to be good. Like, really good. And yes, you're allowed to fail, but if you expect people to notice you and the service you have to provide, it's time to represent. My dad always says this, and this quote is from John Wesley. Light yourself on fire, and people will come from miles to watch you burn.
Someone stood up in an audience somewhere and said to you, how do you be successful? Mm-hmm. And you said you have to be undeniably good at something.
Well, it really is this. When people ask me, say, how do you make it in show business or whatever? And what I always tell them, I've said it many years, and nobody ever takes note of it because it's not the answer they wanted to hear. What they want to hear is, here's how you get an agent, here's how you write a script, here's how you do this, But I always say, be so good they can't ignore you. And I just think that if somebody's thinking, how can I be really good? People are going to come to you. It's much easier than doing it that way than going to cocktail parties.
Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, maybe even commenting what your favorite piece of advice was. I will be uploading every Monday this January and February of 2022. So I hope you stick around. And until then, the funk don't quit.